Hello and welcome to this brand new episode of our podcast, HR Voices. We are now in the season 3 of HR Voices. On this show, we gather opinions and insights from national and international HR leaders on the topics shaping the HR landscape today. Today's workplace is undergoing rapid transformation, and the HR leaders must navigate new trends to stay competitive. From using AI responsibility to prioritizing employee well being, these are crucial times in shaping HR practices. With this in context, today's topic is dynamic HR landscape, HR technology inclusion in talent acquisition, learning and development, and employee engagement. We have four very special guests today with us on our show. Mr. Aditya Kohli, Chief Human Resources Officer at Orient Electric, Dr. Sujatha M., Head of Infosys Learning Advisory, Ms. Anita Guha, Talent and Growth Enabler at IBM, and Mr. Surya Prakash Mohapatra, Global Talent Skilling Head, Wipro Enterprises Futuring. Uh, Welcome to all the speakers here. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'll straight away start the questions. My first question would be to you, Aditya. To set the context, what do you think are the current trends in the HR technology today and how these trends are shaping the future of HR?
Thank you for having me here, and I think it's been a most exciting period for HR. I think we are at this point of time in the golden era, where the degree of changes and the degree of impact that an HR professional can get into the organization is actually phenomenal. And I think if I can step back a little bit, the changes are happening on all the fronts. You know, the workforce is almost reimagining itself. The workplace is shifting quite dramatically. And the work itself, with the advent of new technology, is also kind of altering quite significantly as we go along. So before I go and talk about specifically in terms of technology and technology changes that are really kind of impacting the HR as an organization, I'd say let's step back and ask what are the key talent trends that we are seeing, which will play out as we look at the workforce of the future or look at the HR landscape of the future. So if I kind of think about four key trends that are really shaping up, one is if you look at today's organization, you really have a large multi-generational workforce and really diverse workforce, be it ethnicity, be it religion, be it gender. It's quite diverse. Nationalities also, right? So you've got a multi-generational, diverse workforce that you're working with, which is a big change from a steady state workforce that was there in the past. So that's one big change that's happened. Second is we saw gig economy last couple of years really kind of grow up. The alternate work models are really post-COVID, really kind of amped up. It's not only just the operational tactical jobs. You're seeing even leadership, fractional leadership coming into play. You're seeing different expectations and ambitions being played out at the workforce in terms of the work models. So that's the second big change that's happening. The third, I think this is very specific to India, and it's quite and I'd love to hear other people's views on it later on. But I think today Indian workforce productivity is one of the lowest in the world. So there's a lot of productivity benefits that are hidden in the ecosystem, and the value engineering of roles and the organization is going to get a lot more amped up, and it will get an exponential view as the top line, bottom line come into fore. And the third trend, I think I've seen this happen. You know, if you look at skilling, upskilling, if you look at the technical skill half-life, and when I talk about half-life, I'm saying the time it takes when the skill is half as important as it started. So in the past, you were a doctor. Let's say if you are a general practitioner, your skills lasted 30 years. What you learned stayed relevant for a very, very long time, and it was fine. Today, the half-life of a skill is technical skill is about 2 to 3 years. And organizations can't get away from the fact that they can go and buy new skills. Because if your entire workforce is half as relevant in terms of skills in 2 to 3 years, you need to have a very, very good strategy to kind of make sure that the workforce is constantly upgrading, upskilling itself, right? So these are three, four major uh, talent trends that will shape how the technology gets used in our space right now. And if I kind of look at technology trends in HR, I think I'll say it's a 3+1. And I should start by talking about AI because that's the hottest topic right now. And I think I'm using a phrase which I heard Satya Nadella use in a conversation, which says fastest diffusion and scale up of technology ever in the history of mankind, right? So it's one where AI is now the scale and the speed at which it's kind of encompassing almost every aspect of of work life is quite mind numbing in terms of how much and how to what degree. So AI, I think the second one I would say is people analytics. The amount of data that's being churned out and created, how do you do something with it which is meaningful, makes a difference? So people analytics will be a second big technology trend. The third would be personalization and user experience. Um, you know, I'm a comp guy. I've kind of grown up looking at compensation and a lot of that. And we used to talk about averages. I think that's gone. It's going to be how can I look at a person as n is equal to 1? If I'm looking at Anita's experience, it has to be Anita specific experience. If it's Surya's experience, it has to be Surya specific experience. And I think if you look at Netflix, when Anita logs onto a Netflix and a Surya logs onto a Netflix, the experience is completely different, but the platform is same. And I think that is the power of technology that's going to come into place, that personalization and user experience. And the +1 for me is the watch out, right? So my big watch out here is rules will always be slower than technology. So that will play as a major anchor or a point of friction as new technology comes in. What are you going to do with data? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? How do you govern it? How do you kind of watch out for biases? And that we don't know enough about, but we will have to kind of figure that quite well. So I think if I was to look at technology, these are the 3+1 of mine when I think about technology and technology changes of the future. And the last part of the question that you asked was future of HR. And I'm going to be a oracle, I guess, out here when I kind of think about future of HR. I think one, you are going to see the advent of superhuman HR, right? The ability to do so much by so few. I think that you're almost going to create a class of HR professionals who are aware and who are linked in and connected, where they show fairly superhuman powers when it comes to productivity, when it comes to efficiency. I think the second is learning. The way we learn is going to change quite dramatically. I can see that with my kids. I can see how I learn on a day-to-day basis. It's kind of now a lot more conversational. I get stuck on a problem, I kind of ask a question and I find a solution. I don't need to kind of scout and index and go through lots of information. So I think learning will become a lot more in the flow of work. Learning will become a lot more conversational. And finally, I think HR is going to get a lot more empathetic. We spend too much time busy in doing administrative work. Efficiency was important. I think we're going to have enough platforms to nudge us and give us information to really connect with people the way we need to connect with people. So I'd say these are the three broad initial comments that I have as I think about the question that you raised, Bilquis.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic perspective and a brilliant context to the entire discussion. Anita, I'll come to you. And since you're into talent management, I want to understand from you that what is the role of HR technology when when we talk about talent management, and how is it enhancing talent management processes, and what are the improving recruitment outcomes that we see now because of HR technology?
Thank you for that, Bilquis. And Aditya, thank you for kind of setting the stage. I think that was a really good framing of this entire conversation. So to your question, if I think about the impact of technology on HR and specifically on talent management, I think one part that we can't get away from is the way in which it can help us with automating and in terms of speeding things up through that automation. So for example, and of course, AI enhanced automation is, personalized automation in many ways. So it's really like having our HR professionals now are able to focus much more on the strategic elements of their work, to Aditya's point, actually spending time on empathy versus the day-to-day operational elements, which now can be taken over through technology, through an Ask HR bot that can fully service employees. And when employees use that, initially there would be resistance. I know at IBM there was resistance initially, but over time, when you see the quickness of their responses and the fact that you are immediately directed to what you need, it's almost easier to use an Ask HR than to try and reach out to an individual. And so you can solve a huge number of operational issues and tactical kind of issues that you need to do, whether transferring or whether, even hiring related decisions using some of these elements. So that's one major area. The other is the way in which HR is a huge support to managers. And if we can use technology to support our managers in terms of, I would say, two specific areas. One would be more predictive and the other would be prescriptive. So managers can have dashboards now on their employees that can predict what employees may be doing, or maybe, the potential for an employee to be looking outside based on, the fact that you've not been given sufficient recognitions to that employees, or you're looking at certain trends in that employee, and also look at prescriptive elements like this is a good time to do this for this employee. So you might have a large number of employees, but if you have a dashboard to support you in that way, that's a huge help for our managers. So these are some of the ways in which the role of HR can be significantly enhanced to look at higher level work, because a lot of the work, the day-to-day operational, can be now managed and delegated and managed through technology. So I would say that's one major way in which we can enhance our productivity overall and also still service our clients and be effective.
That's very nice. Very well explained, Anita. Surya, my next question is to you, if you're able to see us.
Yes.
Aditya, very briefly, he mentioned about upskilling and continuous learning. So here I want to ask you, what has been the impact of digital technologies and tools on upskilling and the L&D initiatives in the organizations now?
I think the impact has been mind-boggling, and it is changing every day. I mean, I don't even know where to start. So if you look at the learning processes across every stage of the learning cycle, digital tools, automation, and AI are kind of influencing. So if I split this into two groups of people, the learning providers and the learning seekers, the learning providers are immensely benefiting from digital tools, technology, AI, etc. So today, the learning needs analysis, creating course outlines, designing programs, can happen very, very efficiently and effectively. Learning needs analysis and designing a course program was such a tedious process. It used to take days and weeks to design a training program. Now it can happen at a very short period of time. Content creation, right? You don't have to, great content creator, instructional designer, right? You don't have to be an editor. AI can do a lot of that today. In our industry, most organizations are very effectively using AI for coaching. Of course, AI cannot really replace the human coach, but today, many things have been standardized. So, for example, helping employees prepare for an interview, right? So, based on the algorithms, based on data, humongous amount of data today, AI-powered interview preparation platforms can really enable associates prepare very, very effectively for interviews and crack interviews. And we are also seeing definitely an improvement in the success rate. Now, if I go back to the learning process and the learning seekers, people who are actually learning, for them, there has been a tremendous change. There is more power to the learner today. So AI-empowered learning management systems today are enabling learners to choose their career path. So they can find out where they stand in terms of their current role, what they need to do to bridge the gap, and what are the career opportunities their organization can provide them. And they can really choose their career path based on their aspiration. And they can also, kind of design their own learning path, curate their own learning path, and then take that path. So it's really giving more power to the learner, and it is really transforming. I give this example. I think Aditya was also talking about it. It's the same outlet, but each customer walks in and walks away with a completely personalized product. So that's the power of digital tools in the AI space, and that's how it is transforming. From an organization perspective, it is really helping organizations identify what are the emerging skills, and how they can proactively upskill their people, reskill their people, cross-skill their people, and prepare them for future roles. Today, AI can predict which roles will become redundant, which roles will emerge in future, and which roles will get repurposed. So it's giving a lot of insights to business leaders, to HR leaders, to L&D leaders, to really understand what is the trend, what they need to do, what action they need to take. I think sentiment analysis is a very powerful application of AI as we see today. So as employees or associates give their feedback, there are tools which can actually analyze the sentiment behind the feedback and really let the L&D leaders know what is working well, what is not working well. I think the list is long enough. I think we can just go on and on this topic alone. But I think if I have to say this in one way, I think more power to the learner, hyper-personalization, and democratization of learning has been achieved through digital tools, AI, and technology.
Fantastic. Very well said, Surya. Aditya, my next question is to you, and I'll just set the context. There has been a lot of talk about 90-hour work week, productivity, toxic work culture, good work culture. So the question is that how technology has it has facilitated employee engagement, and how can technology foster a positive work culture in the organizations?
It's a very apt subject, considering the conversation that's going on in the back rooms right now. I think Surya talked about sentiment. I think we've lost the sentiment behind those statements a little bit, and we've clung on to the statement itself. To start with, if you look at when an employee truly feels connected and belongs, they get a entrepreneurial mindset, right? My wife is an entrepreneur, and they're not working hours as such. You're kind of doing whatever is needed to be done. Sometimes it's high intensity, sometimes it's low intensity, but it is always soft simmer is always on, right? So there is a reality out here, and I'm going to leave that aside because it's a different conversation. But when I kind of look at how technology can be used for engagement, I think Surya very nicely mentioned, which is no, I think it was Anita who talked about predictive and prescriptive. I think that's the core, right? Where today there are some managers who are incredibly good at connecting, being empathetic, listening well, and some managers tend to be very process, people, tactical, transactional in nature. Uh, I see AI and the technology that's available right now playing that bridge, where maybe it would get the manager who's already very good to be really excellent, and at least help some of the others to kind of move up the up a couple of notch. Um, and most managers are really working hard and trying really hard to kind of make the most in terms of how they engage their teams and how do they get the best out of them. So let's kind of look at some of the solutions that are there in the marketplace, and then kind of see what we can do with it. So there is a lot of, you know, if you kind of look back, you had engagement surveys happening once a year. That gave you a sentiment of what's happening in the organization. Today, there are enough and more tools out there which give you a sense on a daily basis. Who are the people who are super excited? Who are the people who are connected? Who are the people who need some support? And how can you provide the support? And I think technology helps you answer that question in three phases. One, at an individual level, at a team level, and at an organization level, which wasn't there in the past. Um, and I think that prescriptive element, some people need a little bit more, some in terms of a little bit more touch to kind of get the most out of them, and some people want a little bit more freedom to get the most out of it. And I think the way technology is, um, in terms of looking at the sentiments, looking at individuals, looking at what works, what doesn't, can create almost a blueprint, prescriptive blueprint for managers to really make the most out of it. I can tell a little bit about a tool that we use at our organization. It's a AI based bot, and it's been phenomenal, right? One, it's a conversational bot, so it gives you the sentiment, and it kind of understands the difference between when an employee is happy and when it needs to kind of double click and get more insight from an employee. And what it does really well on the backside is it gives us a flag to be able to say, meet up with this person. This is a person that you need to kind of connect up, have a chat. His manager hasn't spent adequate amount of time with him, or he's new, he just doesn't feel settled yet. Maybe his buddy needs to be nudged a little bit. So that those tools were never available with us in the past. Today it is there, and it's convenient. It's available. It's convenient. It's on the tap. So I genuinely think post-COVID, the kind of utilization, how the organizations have used it, how employees have used it, how managers have used it, um, and there's a lot of leg room out here to kind of get a lot better in terms of the nudges uh, uh, and prompts for managers and employees to do better.
The employee engagement aspect, how has HR technology been able to address these employee engagement issues?
So I think to some extent, Surya already covered that point about sentiment analysis. And
Right.
sentiment analysis immediately gives us an insight into what people are experiencing in the here and now, rather than as a kind of lagging indicator where we look at it a year later and then we find, oh, they were in bad shape. Here, you're able to do a pulse on where people are today and then respond, iterate, make changes, and do what is needed. With the entire belief that engaged employees ultimately are going to be more productive employees. I mean, that's the core belief of why we drive engagement. It's not just because we like happy employees. Of course, we like happy employees, but professionally, we also want happy employees because happy employees are more productive at work. They're more engaged. They're more involved. They do that extra, put in that discretionary effort to add more value to the organization. So if we can create an environment where employees are engaged, we ultimately create a more productive environment. And we can all do better with that. Although I have to say, Aditya, that I disagree with your point that India is particularly low on the productivity scale. I'm a little surprised by that comment that you made, that we have a bigger delta to follow than other countries. I think we're just as good as anybody else. But yes, of course, we all have that delta to get into. And there's definitely an opportunity to be more productive and to use technology more effectively to get there.
So my question to you is more about hybrid working, and because we have this gig work culture, which is now, everywhere. So what are the strategies the organizations can employ to ensure that L&D initiatives can cater to a diverse and spread out workforce, which is into hybrid working mode as well? And how L&D initiatives can work for all of them together?
What a brilliant question. And when I respond to it today, I'm thinking about learning that can happen anywhere, anytime, and across any device. And as you will see, I'm not in the work setup today, right? I'm on leave. And so I continue to learn across my devices as I want at my own pace. However, I'd like to kind of anchor this entire question around diversity and inclusivity. Diversity and inclusivity of learners. And it's important for us to understand, and like you rightly mentioned, we're talking about the gig workers. We're talking about a Gen Y, we're talking about a Gen Z that is coming into the workforce. And the way in which they learn is very different. And what triggers them, or what excites them to learn, is very different from what we've seen probably earlier. And thanks to Netflix, it has given us some kind of an idea about what could be some of the areas that you could pick up from those, the learnings from Netflix, just for us to understand when they learn, how they learn, and why they learn. And the hybrid workforce is really important. Now we're talking about how are they going to be comfortable learning across different platforms, across a blended approach, whether some of it is going to be in person, some of it is going to be learning at your own pace. What is the role of coaching? How does mentoring play a role in this entire scheme of activities in the learning diaspora? And it's important for us to see the way technology has enhanced this entire learning experience. We're now talking about agentic AI. And we know that we have the chatbots, like Aditya spoke about it, Surya spoke about it, but we also have a lot of nudging and recommendations that come in to help democratize learning and hyper-personalized learning for the learner. As organizations move into a skill-based organization, it's important for us to understand what kind of a holistic development a learner would have in the ecosystem. And that's the power of technology, whether it's agentic AI, whether it is the organization looking at aspirations of individuals. So there is not just a learning part of it, there is an ecosystem that needs to be developed to ensure that the learners go ahead and learn the way they want to learn, but definitely making sure it aligns with the organization's learning strategy and the business strategy. And that's the reason why learning has become a boardroom conversation today, because we're talking about upskilling, we're talking about setting up centers of excellence, we're talking about driving organizational initiatives for our clients. And hence it becomes very interesting. This is a very interesting space to be in, because we're talking about the coming together of human and AI. It's not just going to be an AI world, it's going to be human and AI. Alan Kay has spoken about it. And when I was in Stanford some time ago, and I had the pleasure to meet him, the way he spoke about this about 8 years ago, about a human revolution is actually happening. We see that coming into force, and we see the way in which it has embraced the lives of learners. And it's important that organizations believe in a culture of democratization of learning, hyper-personalizing it, but at the same time making it asynchronous learning ecosystems for learners, because they might want a hyper-personalized or they might want to learn on their own. And being flexible, agile, and fungible in these areas become really, really critical for the learners, which in turn add value to the organization and the larger ecosystem or the universe of learning, which is about skill development in the people development space.
Fantastic, Sujatha. Thank you so much for that. Aditya, in fact, this is the last question. Why? Because we are very short of time right now. Uh, Aditya, how can companies ensure that HR tech enhances rather than replaces the human element in people management? This is a talk right now which, everybody is indulging into this talk. Please, your views about it.
So I think I'm going to pick up the productivity conversation again. Um, you know, the output of productivity broadly is on GDP divided by workforce, right? And if you look at it, I think India is about $8 or $9 versus, let's say, look at the US, which is about $68, $70, right? And the heart of it is, and I see it very positively. As an HR professional, I think the opportunity for us is huge. We still have a lot of people thrown behind problems rather than using good technology. And good technology at one point of time was super expensive. And I think as time has gone by, there's almost like a democratization of good technology, and it's got so much cheaper. Um, and India is pretty quick at adopting it. So I think there is a huge productivity gain available. Um, I would say not at the cost of an employee. I'd say with the employee. So today, an organization can get almost multiples of benefit on top line if they are able to use the technology, embed the technology to make a difference to output, and it really makes business sense. So if you go talk to a CEO saying this is going to make a difference to the top line and the bottom line with an investment, with sharper ROIs, um, I think most people will be really ready to kind of jump on the bandwagon. And I've seen a lot of investment happening in the space across companies where there's almost like a positive demand saying, what more can we do? How is our digital landscape looking like? How are we thinking about data? How much data do we have? What can we do more out there? So the opportunity is huge. And we are at a time where the business, the environment will all come together to give us that opportunity. And as HR professionals, we play a role of a catalyst to make that happen.
I want to just add a point to this, which is
Yes.
we think about AI as artificial intelligence, but I think we can also start thinking about it as augmented intelligence, which is a phrase we've used often at IBM, just to remind ourselves that AI is not about replacing the employee. It's about augmenting our ability to make better decisions, do things more effectively and more productively. So if we remind ourselves, it's augmented intelligence is what it's about. We are not taking away, we are really adding. And just to come back to the question that you were asking about, it's not technology replacing, but really augmenting.
And I'd like
Thank
to
you
add
so
to
much.
that as
Yes.
well, just to
Yes.
kind of reiterate the piece around human revolution, where humans and AI coexist. And it's possible. And to also go back to something that Aditya was speaking about, productivity, I think the learning ecosystem has these checks and markers in place because we're talking about an impact of learning. It's not just going to be learning based on what people want, it's also driven by what is going to be purposeful for the organization. And when the twain meet, it becomes a beautiful combination because that tango is going to be beautiful for the organization, the individual, and the entire ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sujatha. It was wonderful having each one of you with us today. It was a fantastic conversation, and we intend to be in touch with you for a very long time, and we'll come back to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.